morning, good morning. Well, it's time to get right to it. And we have quite a bit to accomplish today. So, hence, there's no good reason not to get right to it. Okay, so yesterday, what did we do? Well, we did this shot. Actually, I don't totally remember exactly everything we did yesterday. It seems to me we did a shot of Golik, and then we touched up some backgrounds. So, yes, it would be this shot we did of Golik. Yes, we brought in the background, did a little color correction. Okay, so this is the bad news for you if you're wanting to see sort of the from the beginning to end approach to animation, is that after I was actually offline, I did this shot from beginning to end. And this shot will certainly come in handy today as we go ahead and repurpose some of the assets in that shot in order to knock out the next one, which is what we see floating across the screen in front of us. So, here we go. Back here, Tahoma. I'm going to go ahead and open up 491. No, 488. I'm going to go ahead and open up 488 because I know I'm going to be coming back to it. And plus, there's one more change I wanted to make on the background for this shot. So, just kind of a quick, I guess, let's kind of map out what we're going to do. From a scripting standpoint, what are we looking at? We're looking at the edit. So, okay, so from a scripting standpoint, we did this shot of Golik where he says, "I see you've come to your senses." And she says, she's a little bit nonplussed, "I have. And I want to thank you, good Golik." Okay, which obviously would prompt a response from him. And so he's just not quite so sure, and then it goes back to Tianara, and she's going to say, "It's an honor to have this opportunity." According to the script, Golik says, executed in a little different way than it would seem to be from the way it's written. In that, it would probably be stupid to show Golik dramatically turning, his cloak sweeping majestically, and exiting the tent. That's probably a very bad idea. What would make more sense is, since he's got a line of dialogue, would be to cut back to Tianara and perhaps maybe show his shadow actually moving across the scene, because yeah, it's a little bit of a cheap shot in the sense that it's a lot easier to animate, but also it's kind of better storytelling anyway, because TNR's response to this line of dialogue is in fact way more important than you, the audience, having the pleasure of seeing the guy leave the room, right? People entering and leaving rooms really is not that entertaining, especially because we all know what it means to enter or leave a room. So, why do you need to show it? Her expression's way, way, way the heck more important. So, when she says her line, "It's an honor to have this opportunity," I'm thinking we're going to be able to reuse this shot. It's an honor to have this opportunity. In point of fact, the truth of the matter is, my gut says use a little plastic tool to dress up this motion, and I'm seeing her kind of throw her head back a bit. Okay, so that would be pretty easy to do again with the plastic tool in Tahoma. However, you could actually do the entire shot by just repurposing this little sequence here. And I almost feel like the double blinking eye thing, you could almost get away with doing it twice in this case, because she is being very, you know, there's a lot of pretense going on here. Okay? So, um, so let's jump back over here to Tahoma, and probably it would be prudent, just in case, to open up Krita. But before we get too far, what I do want to do is, as I was looking at, it happens I was looking at Naruto. I mean, sometimes I just sort of pick, typically I just pick an anime on Tubi that looks like a likely suspect, and then I'll just kind of refer back to some anime as just a visual reference for, kind of like where do we need to be in terms of the quality of this or that we're doing. And one of those this or that's is, of course, the background. What seems to be glaringly absent here is this background would work better if we had, all the gradients and everything are fine, to a degree, but it would probably be better if we had some sense of an outline around the sofa so that it feels a little bit more toony. So that's kind of my opinion at the moment, and I'm going to stick it in there, do a quick re-render, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay. Yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean, it's actually gonna tighten up the edge, and at the same time, like especially through there, I'm actually not being too careful about whether this sort of bleeds a little bit. I don't think it probably matters, because in a sense that bleed just it's almost like a backlight on the edge of the sofa anyway, right? So in that sense, why would that be a problem? Answer, it's not. Okay, so I do want to check one thing though. Yeah, I think I'll backpedal a couple steps here. Yeah, maybe to there. Okay, so let's get this in here. It's a good example of very, very small things that can make a pretty good difference in terms of, I guess, the emotion or that the audience is going to feel while they're watching it. Of course, sometimes that's hard to predict. But anyway, there you go. So I'm hitting the N key, and then coming back here. And if I want to really drive it home, what I probably would also do is put in some linear detail like this. I'm going to actually kick this up to -1 just to see. Yes, that's probably better. So it just kind of brings it a little bit more into the toon or anime zone as far as just the way it looks. You could even go a step further and put a couple little, what I tend to call wingdingers right there, but I think I'm going to leave those out for the moment, and then come back here, because how do I export Krita animations and upload them? Oh my goodness, what a great question. Do me a favor if you would, friend. I can see that you're either Asian, or at least your YouTube name is an Asian word. Do you have the ability in English to type out how your name would be said phonetically? In other words, my name would be probably D-A-Y. So like that would be an English, that would be a phonetic spelling of Dave, right? So that one would know how to say it. So just curious about that. It'd be nice to know how to say it. But yeah, your question is a great question, and I can answer that. Because I do it all the time, and it's actually one of the most important parts of my workflow. Now, I would say this. Your question is, how do you export and upload? Okay. Uploading, let's put it this way. You've really got a couple options. Let me go ahead and, this is really the wrong shot. I need to pull up something that's got some animation in it. So I'm just kind of spitting in the wind here to see if I happen. Oh wait, that's not going to work either. I have to pull up a Krita file that's got some animation baked into it. I think this one does. So give us half a second. Okay, so yeah, this is a really old shot from when I was actually early in the process of creating this show. And this is near the latter part, actually, of episode 2, which is what I'm working on right now. So there's our shot. And the question you're asking would be, how do you export from Krita? So it's a two-part question. How do you export? How do you upload? I'm not going to go too far with how you upload because honestly, you can grok that on YouTube. I'm assuming you mean upload to YouTube. And if that's what you want to do, then, you know, you've got a YouTube account. So you just, you know, in the YouTube studio, you just drag and drop a video file of which YouTube is tolerant of a lot of different formats. So a Windows media file, AVIs are a little iffy. Certainly any flavor of MP4. So I edit with Sony Vegas, and the visually lossless MP4 flavor that Vegas likes to export would be an MXF file. This is an MXF file, and lo and behold, YouTube is fine with MXF files too. So anyway, hey, thanks Game Dem Simplified, I appreciate that. Okay, so to answer your question in a less long-winded fashion, hit Control R. Now that's pretty much it. Okay, when I'm exporting from Krita, I export image sequences, and in fact, my entire show. This isn't true with films that I've produced, but with the cartoon stuff, I'm actually editing with image sequences all the time. I never turn it into a video file, actually, until the final render of the show. Okay? So, this dialogue here is the important thing. Now, by the way, just to be clear, I don't think Control R is a default hotkey in Krita. It might be, but I'm not sure that it is. So what we're talking about is file, not export, render. Render animation. Okay, so you're going to render an animation, and now you got a few choices. Okay. Asian person who asked this question, whose name I can't say. Do you also run Tahoma like I do? Please answer that question, yes or no, because that might partly inform my answer from Krita. And the reason for that is if you want to take your export or your render from Krita and turn it into a movie, you have an extra step in that process that requires you to have FFmpeg installed on your system. Okay, so you're looking for FFmpeg, and ultimately it's actually going to be an exe, ffmpeg.exe. Okay, so pen, I'll hit your question here really fast just because it's a pretty quick question to answer. All right, so this cartoon is it's being produced in 24-minute episodes, sort of typical, really. So this episode, which is about, well, let's see here. This is about, so that's 8.5 minutes. So this episode is 2/3 done. Okay, so 60%, 60-70% of this episode is complete, has been animated, I should say. I don't want to say complete because we need to add the voices and the music and all that sort of stuff, of course. But so this is about 2/3 done, and episode 1, which obviously comes before this one, is actually all done. So we have almost 2 episodes, 1 episode complete and a second episode near completion. So if you're really into YouTube, which aren't we all, then you might ask, well, where can I watch it? You know, why hasn't it been released? Blah 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 blah. So the short story about that is, number 1, I intend to do a crowdfund on the project, but I didn't want to do that until I was far enough along in the project that I could say with confidence that I was going to be able to deliver the goods and successfully complete multiple episodes of the show. Okay, now a fair question then becomes, well, how do we know you're going to complete anything anyway? And my answer, the best answer I can give is this. If you go to Tubi, and you search this term, these two feature films were both written, directed, edited, and musically scored by me. I own these two movies, and they're fairly successful. This one has been quite successful, and so, you know, I've been around the block a few times in the feature film department, and you know, I know how to complete a project. But animation, shifting from live action to animation was a transition. There was a learning curve involved, and again, so anyway, the other half of that equation is that I do have the enthusiastic support of an international film distributor who handles those two movies I just showed. That, as I say, is quite enthused about not only distributing this cartoon, all 12 episodes, you know, as much as I can create, as fast as I can create it, but also helping to promote a crowdfunding effort so that we sort of offset the risk a bit of, you know, of having to sustain 4 years of animation production. Okay, so that's kind of the story behind that. And so anyway, getting back to the question asked by the person whose name I cannot say, the answer is you're going to file render animation, and then from this dialog you can choose image sequence or video or both. I used to do a lot of exporting videos. On this project, I've sort of just retreated back to just dealing with image sequences, and it's even actually a little more complex than that, because what I typically do is if I'm this is just my workflow. If I'm spitting out an image sequence from Krita, what I'm actually doing is spitting it out here to a temp folder, and then dragging, and which are smaller. They're still pretty much visually lossless unless you look really, really close. And because they are smaller, they tend to perform better in real time on the video timeline when you're playing back. So hey, Dead Pianist, welcome to the party. Okay, so none of that really helps you as far as Krita goes. So the simplest way to get your animation out of Krita is to render it as an image sequence. But for you, that's an incomplete solution. And the reason it's an incomplete solution is because you need a way to convert the image sequence into a movie. Okay? How do you do that? Well, you select video instead of image sequence. And when you select video, Krita will not render a video unless you have ffmpeg.exe on your system. And so you're going to have to get a hold of ffmpeg.exe. The reason I mentioned Tahoma, unless I'm speaking out of turn and I'm wrong, I might be wrong about this, but if I recall correctly, recent versions of Tahoma happen to have the ffmpeg.exe file bundled with it. Again, I might be wrong about that. But if you search for ffmpeg online, you'll find it, and I don't have a link for you, but you need to find ffmpeg is a very, very mature, well-established, old command line program, runs in a little DOS box, that will let you do almost anything you could possibly ever want to do with video files in terms of converting from one format to another, playing them back, appending them, you know, daisy chaining them together and turning several into a single file, stuff like that. ffmpeg is the Swiss Army knife of video processing. And so under the hood, Krita and Tahoma both use ffmpeg for creating video files. They do have some formats they deal with internally, but when it comes to videos, pretty much ffmpeg is the tool of choice. The only other thing I would add to that, so then you're going to say, let's say you've installed ffmpeg. Now you have to decide what format of video you want, and my strong recommendation is go with the MPEG-4 just because it's the most ubiquitous format. It's the most common format that is understood by all of the likely suspects as far as platforms you might want to upload to. To answer Dead Pianist's question, yes, at this point I am the only one working on the project. Okay, and that's been true for. I mean, again, to make the story short, you know, this particular project, I was working on something else before I started working on this, and over a year ago, had a conversation with my film distributor, and together we decided that a project like this one would be a good, would make sense to create and release. And so based on that, I shifted gears away from this other thing I was working on and started working on this. And then literally gave myself like a year to just dial in my workflow and get my skills up to where they needed to be and all that sort of thing. So anyway, the other caveat I will give you, friend whose name I can't say, and asked how you export out of Krita. The only other thing I would add to this is that I believe, if I recall correctly, by default, when you create an MPEG or an MP4 from Krita, the default profile, and I'm not going to explain what all these settings are. Generally speaking, you can leave them. Leave them alone, okay? Because it looks, the video that you create will look great, blah, blah, blah. However, one thing I did discover with the other project I was working on, which was being edited in Blender. I was using the Blender video sequence editor to edit. What I found was the default setting of main profile resulted in MP4 files that Blender couldn't read, okay? When I switched it to baseline, everything worked. And ever since then, which was a long time ago, I've rendered from Krita using the baseline profile. Now that's a little bit of a misnomer because I actually almost never create MP4s directly from Krita anymore. But what actually happens when you hit the OK button is it will render the image sequence, and then in the background, FFmpeg then converts the image sequence into a movie and then deletes all the images. Okay? So that's as complete an answer I can give you. Okay, so Dead Penis says, and how did you learn pipeline management cinematography? By trial and error. Completely by trial and error. You know, I started making, well, let's see, I made my first film, I think, in 2009. And then it was just, there was basically from when I first started messing with film, because I was doing like some corporate videos, and my partner and I were doing some, I guess you'd call it sports coverage, because we were going out and shooting video of some of the biggest dog sporting events in the world back then. Okay, so we're trying to create videos that sort of look like what you might see on ESPN, but in terms of the titles and the action and the pacing and all that and the editing, it'd be like a 3-camera shoot. You go to this event with 3 cameras and then cut it all into an exciting sports show. Well, out of that flowed my partner and I saying, hey, let's make a movie, which we did. And then it was a full create made for TV movies. So I was really, really, really lucky to get that opportunity, because most people never get the chance to get paid, you know, to make a movie. And in truth, learn on the job, actually, you know, because I made a lot of mistakes. And I would say that it took me, the irony of it is that the best movie I made, the most successful movie is not the best movie, because I still had some things to learn even after I made the movie that just happened to be the right movie at the right time, that it sold really well. If that same movie was released today, it would not sell anywhere near as well as it did, because what made it successful was a retail shopping sector that literally does not exist anymore. I mean, the whole sector went bankrupt about 6 years ago, and the whole marketplace was decimated overnight, actually. It was a really crazy time. So, but for Dead Pianist, the basic answer to your question is a lot of trial and error. And I'm still learning. You know, I'm still learning. So cinematography, I actually mentioned this the other day. If you want to run a camera, you want to make videos, make movies, short films, long films, whatever, the two pieces of advice I gave the other day that I stand by quite strongly is, if you want to improve your uh, your movie work as quickly as possible for as little effort as possible. Just do two things. One is quit moving the camera, actually lock the camera, and number two, pay attention to the rule of thirds in your composition. And given a choice, shoot a little wider, not a little tighter. Don't always shoot tight because you think it looks dramatic or something, right? I used to do that. So obeying the rule of thirds uh, and just having a locked camera helped a lot. Improved my filmmaking kind of overnight. The other two things in my case that I did that I think to a degree were a little bit ahead of the curve as far as independent filmmaking goes is I had to figure out a way. I wanted to get a quality of lighting that I saw in really, high-end productions that I didn't feel like I was getting in my filmmaking. And so I had to figure out a way, how do we deal with lights in a way that's efficient? Because when I was shooting films, it was almost like the way I'm doing this cartoon. I mean, it wasn't just me, but it was usually me, whoever was on the set to be in the shots that we were doing that day as far as the actors go, and then maybe two helpers. It was a small team. And so we had to figure out, we knew that in Hollywood they do a lighting setup in about a half an hour, typically. A good team, that you're paying hundreds of dollars. And Pen, I'll answer your question in a moment. And by the way, I'll admit it gratifies my ego to answer these questions, and so I want to be really careful not to, wear my ego on my sleeve. So I'm just trying to give you the straight information as clinically as I can. What I did was I figured out that if you go out on Amazon and you find a small LED panel that has, I don't know how many, I think they have, the ones I bought I think had 120 LEDs on them. And the key thing for me was these little lights, which, give me half a second, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to go back here to the webcam only and actually show you this. See, this might be interesting. Hang on one second. Okay, so if you're here about animation, please don't let this frustrate you because everything, I mean, mostly everything that has to do with filmmaking applies directly to animation. You see it here, for example, in the I'm sorry, I got to switch screens. You see it here in the most recent shot I did, in that this backlighting that I put on Golic. Okay, so this shot right here actually illustrates what I was talking about. I was very careful to put his nose and eyes on the rule of thirds. His basic facial expression is located on where the thirds lines cross. So that makes for a nicer composition. And the other thing I did was add an effect that backlit him a little bit. So I'm giving attention to lighting, right? Okay, so we'll come back here. So this is what I'm talking about, okay? I purchased these on Amazon. I think, as I recall, they were in the neighborhood of $30. Now, they use a battery that was the same battery I happened to already own because I had a Sony FX1 video camera. Okay, now that's not a movie camera because it doesn't do 24p. If you don't know what that is, I'm not going to waste time with that at this moment. But, okay, so what happened was I had the batteries that it needed, and the batteries were expensive. But guess what? It turned out that to get replacement batteries for this so that I could stack up 3 or 4 of them and know that I always had a charged battery, the aftermarket batteries, which I also got on Amazon, only cost like, I think, $3 or $4 a piece. So I ordered a bunch of them thinking, you know what, they'll probably suck and they'll probably last for like 20 minutes and be dead. And it turned out that was not the case. The aftermarket batteries lasted for 8 hours or something. You can, with the thick battery that sticks out to here, this light would run for all day, basically. Okay. Well, the beautiful thing about this is that it's dimmable. It's got a dial on it that you can turn it up and down. Okay? And then what I did was I took some Velcro and actually figured out a way to Velcro a light to a microphone stand. Just a plain old mic stand. So my entire light was about $120 for the entire light. Okay? And most of the expense was the mic stand. But what that did was it gave us the ability to put the light on a stand, and you could get the light 8 feet in the air, and you could just grab the mic stand, pick it up, and move it to a new position, and then use the dimmer to dial the light in perfectly. So if you had 2 of them on the set, you got this gorgeous 2-point lighting for virtually no cost. And for most filmmakers, that's going to be the thing that's going to increase the quality of your work as the fastest and cheapest possible, is to just get some lights. You know, just get some lights and do some decent lighting. There's other things I did to get the quality up that involve the audio. I'm not going to waste time on that here and now because I don't think you guys probably care about that at this moment. But getting the audio at a high quality as well was certainly an important part of that process. So now I'm going to stay here on the webcam and answer Dead Pianist's last question. Okay, so Pen asked how much budget did I have. Okay, so the budget for the making of the films was $36,000. So a vanishingly small number by Hollywood standards. Very, 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 very low budgets. In fact, not only that, but the budget was effectively even lower than that because I had all of my profit, all of the money I was going to make came out of that budget. So I had to, whatever it was going to cost me to make the movie, came out of the $36,000, and then whatever was left over was what I got to keep because I didn't own the movies. Okay? So, so then the question became, how do you figure out how to make a movie for very, very little money, because otherwise you can't survive, basically. All right? So so as an example, bear with me here for just half a second, and I'm gonna pull this up again so I can illustrate this. Okay, so I'm gonna switch to this screen, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. You can see it mostly in this particular movie because this was the last one that I made. Okay, so that's the logo for my distributor. But if you look here, I'm just going to skip kind of randomly through here and basically look for some shots that are indoors. Let me see here. Yeah, this is actually probably a good example. So, and this does look a little dark on this screen, I must say. But, and I'm going to turn the audio off. I don't know if that's bleeding through or not. But, you know, there would have been a light over here. There would have been a light over here. You know, you're just kind of sculpting the lighting of the situation as you go. As I said, on this screen, this actually looks a little bit on the dark side. But yeah, this entire film, and in fact every single film I ever made, they almost all cost exactly the same amount to make, which was a grand total of $8,000. I made all the movies. In fact, this is Sean Young, Hollywood actress Sean Young, who's been in all kinds of movies like you know, Ace Ventura, Blade Runner. She's been in a bunch of movies. It's the blooper reel. But even paying for Sean Young, this film was made for a total of less than $8,000 out of pocket. So there you go. I mean, that's what I did. And then that film, you know, that this film's done okay, royalty wise. You know, it makes some money each month, so it's good. Um, so there you go. But have you seen Monogatari anime? No, I'll check it out right now if I can. Uh, it's really different. I don't know how they do it, but it doesn't use common cinematography rules and still looks amazing. Okay, so just to since I'm having fun doing so, I'll go ahead and sort of indulge this question at the moment and just kind of see. I'm seeing if there's any clips of it here on YouTube. Um, I assume it's new and probably isn't going to be on some of the free platforms like Tubi, you know. And can you post, by the way? Do you know where this is? Where this is? Is this you know, like Crunchyroll or something? I mean, where would you go watch this if you were gonna watch it? Um, I'm curious about. So let's just look here. Again, I'm muting the audio, and I'm what I'm doing is I'm looking at it here on YouTube just to see what the heck you're talking about. And I don't know if I'll be able to get a good indication of that here, but and obviously this is a YouTuber weighing in, but I'm hoping I can see a little bit of it as far as what the video quality looks like or whatever. Um, so we're just getting little bitty clips, but honestly, as far as I can tell so far from what I'm seeing, I don't see anything that looks unusual or particularly different to me. Oh, I see. I kind of see. Um, okay. No, that looks completely standard. I mean, that looks like completely standard anime to me. I'm not seeing anything particularly unusual in terms of um, anything. Frame rates, post processing. It does not look like the characters were done in 3D, although it's possible. I don't think so, though. That looks hand drawn to me. Okay, so let me go back here half a second here. One thing I'm seeing here that I've actually tried to apply in my show is that you can see that they've applied a gradient across the color. So in other words, the characters by and large, well, I shouldn't say by and large. I've seen plenty of shots here just in this clip that were flat colors. But to add drama and character to it so it pops better, they're applying a gradient to it. But other than that, everything here looks pretty normal to me. Again, they're using gradients, a lot of gradients. This, like, you could put an overlay that goes from yellow to red over top of your shot, and it would give you that feeling. Everything about that looks completely garden variety anime to me. Does not look particularly. It's not bad. I mean, it looks great, but there's nothing innovative or different that I'm seeing here that strikes me as being particularly amazing. Now, these shots, I would strongly guess that they took photographs and then painted over them just to make it simpler. But again, here, pretty typical anime fare. So hopefully it won't result in some sort of stupid copyright claim, since this is also on YouTube. But yeah, again, right here, absolutely nothing I see here looks unusual at all. This looks like standard Krita or OpenToonz style ink and paint. Now the likelihood is they're probably using, well, I guess it's fairly likely that they're using Clip Studio paint or TV paint, because those are used more in the anime industry, but hard to say for sure. You can see a little bit of a I guess I would say a bleed that tells me that it looks like the way that they're overlaying their outlines over top of their color is allowing some of the color to bleed through just a little bit, not very much actually. But again, this, look at the way she's moving, you know, right there. That's just standard 8 frames per second. It's the same thing I'm doing. So anyway, I hope that helps you. I mean, I hope that answers your question. Looks pretty cut and dried to me. So looks fine, but you know, nothing unusual. Anyway, so that's that. Yeah, I've been blabbing for a long time, and probably it's really time to get to work. So step 1 today is, because Tahoma remembers its render settings, I can just hit Control R, and that outline I put on the sofa will now be baked into the shot. So we see that there, and that does look better. Having some of those hand-drawn lines definitely makes that, it marries the character and the background together a little bit better. Okay, so that's that. Now, what are we doing next? Oh yes. Okay, so now it's her line of dialogue, and what she says is, no problem, dead pianist. What she says is, it's an honor to have this opportunity. Okay, so what we're doing is we're following Animate convention in regard to lip sync, which means we don't have to do too much, frankly. So the easiest course of action to create shot number 493 is going to be to take shot number 488, which is this, and just immediately save it. Other save options, save scene as, and we're going to save this as 493. Excuse me, 493. Okay. So there are some, if I bump into a situation where I need to be extra cautious, I'll point that out. But I say that because you do want to be a little bit careful about reusing the same assets in multiple scenes, because if you change those assets, you could introduce corruption into the earlier shot you did. So for me, since I'm using this same image sequence in this shot, in shot number 493, if I have to add any new drawings, let's say I wanted to make a little variation of this drawing. Well, I'm just going to, typically I'm going to duplicate that at the end of the list. And by the way, I don't think, if I just hit the D key to duplicate it, it's going to put it at the end of the list. So there's no problem with that. But hitting insert, for example, to insert an image in the middle of the sequence would be a little more dangerous, because that would mean potentially I could go back to the earlier shot that I did and the wrong images are showing up because things are out of order in the TLV file. TLV file, and actually that's not completely true in this case, because I'm misspeaking to a degree, because actually this is not a TLV file. This is a raster level. These are just plain old paintings, if you will, because they were rendered out of Krita. So anyway, hopefully that's not too confusing for you. All right, going back here, and we're going to figure out in short order how to knock out this shot. We said that her line of dialogue is, it's an honor to have this opportunity. Okay, so what we have here is, she's going to, really we're starting here. This is where we're starting. I'm going to say, I think it would be cool if she went from this back to this, as if she's softening a bit. And then she says, it's an honor to have this opportunity. So I think we go back to this, and then at the very tail end, we sneak back up to this again. Do we do the eye blink again? It's a little gratuitous, but honestly, I think that probably is the right choice, to do the eye blink again. Okay, so if we're going to do that, before we go any further, let's change our output settings so that when we render this, we don't accidentally render over the other shot that we did. That's kind of important. So this needs to be changed to 493. 493 render, And this is already going to save to images called 493. Okay? So I'm not going to go ahead and render it now because I really don't know how long the image sequence is going to be when we're all done. But another point about repurposing this shot for the next shot is the question of whether we really need the plastic tool in there. Hey, Pen, you asked what made you do this show. I actually explained that about a half an hour ago. It was, I mean, I'll summarize it in 30 seconds. It was a conversation with my film distributor where we talked about the concept, and the distributor thought it sounded like a good, something that he could get behind and they would be enthused to distribute. So it's like, okay, let's do that then. The other thing I was working on, I really didn't have a pathway to the marketplace, you know, dialed in. So, okay, so we're starting here. Now the bad news is we don't actually have a super simple way to, reverse everything, which would make it a little easier. But basically we're using only this shot and this shot. And then we may use the plastic tool again, but this plastic tool level that's operating on all these images that we're not going to use is completely unnecessary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually grab this entire block here and just hit Control X. Okay? Now this column can be completely deleted. Alright, so now I'm going to save all, and that doesn't affect this level. These images all are unaffected by the fact that I chopped some of them out. It doesn't matter. But now we've sort of cleaned up our Tahoma project. So one aspect of that that's worth considering is if you look in the scene cast window, right now it appears, let me look here. At least with OpenToonz, OpenToonz does not do a great job of managing the cast, and neither really does Tahoma. Tahoma's just a fork of OpenToonz. As you can see, this shot has 1, 2, 3 levels in it, but what we see here in the cast is 5. So what you want to do is, and that will introduce corruption and or potential crashes later when Tahoma gets confused about what levels are or are not in your scene. So just open the cast window and right mouse click and click remove all unused levels, and that just cleans things up, and then immediately resave. It's just a good practice. Anytime you're like deleting levels and moving things around, it's good to check your scene cast and sort of clean it out every once in a while. Okay, so now the problem we have here is we're actually going to go from this to this. Okay, so I'm going to actually go like this. I'm going to hit Control X, and I'm just going to hit Control V here. Now you can see there's a problem with the mouth. The reason there's a problem with the mouth is because the mouths were just randomly drawn over top of the drawings that were in the shot, and some of them were in different positions. So I'm going to have to probably redo some of the mouths. I'm not going to go into the mouth drawings and change them, because that would do exactly what I described a little bit ago. It would actually break shot number 488. Hey Maria. So for that reason, we're going to just kind of go like this. And for the moment, let's just turn the mouth off so we don't have to think about it. It's not distracting us. Okay, so now what we want here is, I'm going to hit delete, not Control X, because I don't want it to ripple edit. I just want to put a hole in there. Okay, and then I'm going to go here. Oh yeah, we want the eye blink in there. So, and actually, stop here for a second. We're going from here to here, so actually the eye blink should probably be this one. Okay. And if we're going to say that maybe this is a slow transition, just for hypothetical here, we'll give it a try and see what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and allow 2. See what I mean? I'm going to go ahead and use the eye blink on both poses to just get her from this to this. All right. So it's arguable whether keeping this level with the mouths in it at all is a good idea. And I'm going to say at the moment, let's just wait and see. Okay. Obviously that's in the wrong position, but this is our dialogue algorithm, okay? So I think what we'll do is we'll keep that mouth and we'll use the Animate tool to just dial it into position as needed. So that means we're going to take 11 here, Control C. Now if I paste this in here, it's going to move everything else down. So what I'm going to do is hit Control V, put it here. Just kind of delete these and then drag it over into this level. That way it's not causing a problem with ripple editing. Okay, so basically okay, so I think I'm going to hit Control C here. Let's get into the shot and add another eye blink back in here because I want to, you know, I cut to Golik, and now when I come back to her, I want to sort of preserve the attitude that we established at the end of the previous shot. Okay, so there we go. Now, we're going to want to get into this new pose before she starts talking. So there's that. And then we're going to have another change when she actually reverts back to the to this pose at the end. But for now, what we want to do is just stretch this down. Okay. So now we've got her not talking, and then we've got her talking. So the question is, what about the mouth position? So the solution is hit the A key. Boom. Okay. So a global key, I think with the Animate tool, does mean that it's going to set a key for all dimensions of translation. Means it's going to set a key that affects everything: rotation, scaling, movement, and the center. So I'm going to just put in a key there. And now she shifts position. Boom. And right there. Okay, so what we're going to do is duplicate the key here. Boom. And then here we need to go ahead and get her mouth where it's supposed to be. And then look at the dialogue and see if it worked. And I would say it did. Now, is it a little off rotation? Probably. So therefore, let's go back here, hit the A key again, and I'm going to go to all mode, and I'm going to set the center here, so it's kind of, so that if I were going to rotate the mouth, you know, I can kind of rotate it around its natural axis. So Control V, and then here, point that I'm getting at is I actually want to go like this. Just move that a little bit so we get that smile. And she's almost talking to him in a very, I mean, she's playing him. She's trying to play him anyway. Okay, so her line of dialogue, I already said what it is, but it's an honor to have this opportunity. Okay, I think she would blink on the word honor because she pretty much has to choke it down, right? So she says, it's an honor right there. Boom. Okay, so right there we want an eye blink, so I'm going to go delete, grab this one, Control C. Is this right? Yes, this is right. So I'm going to go Control C and Control V, and of course I have to re-ripple that. So she says, it's an honor. Okay, boom, this is wrong. This needs to be stretched. And I made this. Basically, we've got, let me look at my algorithm here on my lip sync. We got 8, 9, 8, 9, 10. 8, 9, 8, 9, 10. So here we've got 8, 9, 8, 9, 10. what I think we want to do on this particular instance is just insert another copy of 8.9. And then I think that gets our timing to where it needs to be. It's an honor to have this opportunity. Yeah, I definitely like driving home the borderline snarky attitude there. Okay, so now obviously what we need to do is take this keyframe and put a copy of it right, let's see here. So we need to put a copy of it here and then move this keyframe up to here. So all we're doing is just adjusting the mouth position. There we go. Okay, and then I am going to, as I say, somewhat gratuitously leave the eye blink in there. I think it's got a little bit of attitude that I like, and admittedly I'm doing it twice in a row, but I think in this case it's kind of appropriate. So all right, so now she says it's an honor. Okay, right there. Now what I want to do here is actually reintroduce the plastic tool. So I'm going to hit the X key, create a mesh to protect the stuff that you don't want to have inadvertently move. So I tend to always put a little bit of a chain around the bottom so that when the mesh is being deformed, it doesn't inadvertently make like this bottom pop up out of the, off the screen, or I should say you can see how the bottom of her body is cut off, right? So I think you guys understand what I'm trying to say here. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and put, I found that it tends to be safest, it's not like a rule, but I would say it generally safest to put a joint or a node around the nose, then one up here, and now, so we can see that she's going to bend at the neck, and we can test this. We can just jump right in and kind of see what we've got as far as animation goes. Okay, and as you can see, we are going to have to pipe the mouth through the plastic tool. But the important thing here to see is that this is kind of what I was talking about. The distortion of her jawline and cheeks is really not acceptable. We want to protect that. So the way we do it is, in this case, is I would probably do something like this. And that's going to force, to a degree I am guessing, by the way. But I'm thinking that's probably going to get us to where these all move as a unit. And it actually causes her shoulders to compress in a way that looks pretty natural. So that looks like a pretty darn good solution to me. Some people talk about using paint rigid with the plastic tool to cause certain parts of the mesh to not be deformable. Honestly, I've generally found that to basically be useless compared to just putting in some extra bones like I just showed to protect certain areas and keep them from moving. So, okay, so there's that. And it looks like no new comments or questions, so super duper. What I wanted to do here is, I'm not even going to worry about the mouth for the moment, okay? I'm also going to assume that right here, right here, okay, that the plastic tool at the most is going to run up to here. So the beautiful thing is that once if the plastic tool only has an effect on your character as for the distance that it runs in the X sheet. So from here on, it's ignored. It has no effect. So we can just work with this drawing, and if we wanted to, we could create a completely separate mesh to mess around with this drawing. I don't think we need to in this case. I think this is working well on its own. So here, excuse me, we're in animate mode, and she goes boom, boom. So I think just to get us started on the right foot, I'm going to go ahead and boop, go like this, just so there's one key there. And I want, when she says honor, that's where I just want to feel a little bit of her head kicking back. Okay, so now I think, don't quote me on this one, but instead of cutting and pasting this little keyframe, what I'm going to do is go here, and then I'm going to click this little guy right here. And whatever's the active thing that's animatable, it should set a keyframe for that. And it appears that it did. Okay, so now if we go like this and just straighten her up, which is what I had planned to do. And okay, so that answers my question. That did not work. So at least with the plastic tool, probably because of having to differentiate between which bone or node you've selected, using the keyframe button doesn't seem to work. So to do what I intended, I want to go Control C and then put another key and just copy that keyframe here. That way there's no movement interpolation going on between the two. Otherwise, you'd move it here, and then over the course of this entire period of time, she'd be slowly raising up, which of course is not what you wanted. So Pen asks again, what made you want to do the show? And it looks like you retracted that message that you had already asked that, and so I answered that as well as having answered it probably 15 minutes into this very live stream. So the answer is here already. Okay, so she pops up like that, and now interesting. I'm thinking I'm going to hit Alt-A to basically move all those keyframes up north a little bit. Okay, so I'm not sure. That gets my mouth where it needs to be, so it looks to me like these two keyframes need to be moved a little bit south. Like that. Oh wait, I don't think that's right. I think it's here. Nope. Okay, yes, because okay, I'm sorry folks. This is my bad. Because I was using the Animate tool to animate the mouth position, we don't want to pipe the mouth through the plastic tool in this case. What we want to do is just make an adjustment so that everything's where it needs to be. So I'm just going to hit the A key and maybe make just an itsy bitsy adjustment there. Okay, so then she says her lines, and then we're going to have a problem here. Yes. Okay, so right there on frame 27, what we need to do is duplicate this key, actually on frame 26, so that then on frame, well actually what we should do is go like this, put it on frame 25 and follow the plastic tool. We've actually got a 2 frame tween here. So that's really what we want. See? Perfect. Feels like her mouth is a little bit low there, so I'm just going to raise that up a bit. And now, you know, this is just a little fine-tuning thing we need to do. Okay. Okay, why are we... Oh, and we're seeing a little bit of a shift because of this key. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of both of these and just kind of... Let's go back here and, you know, get our bearings and then work forward. So... basically, once we see an issue, we'll deal with it. So I'm going to grab this key because I know I'm going to want to make a copy of it, right? So right probably here. So copy it here, and then here we'll just, again, make an adjustment. Okay? And then the other thing would be the the eye blink thing that I talked about. So let's go to 72 frames. We've already got the eye blink in here somewhere. There it is. So we're going to go Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, and then grab both of these, Control C, Control V. And stretch the mouth all the way down here. Okay, so what that should give us is TNR is saying would I consider updating to Tahoma 1.2? Well, the short answer is no, actually. And the only reason not is because the current versions of Tahoma and Krita that I'm using are the most stable by far that I've ever used, especially on the Krita side. The last thing I'm going to do right now, because I'm trying to knock out, you know, a consistent amount of animation every day, and I've got a workflow that's working well and almost never crashes, the last thing I'm going to do is introduce a software upgrade that often, not always, but often means that you get a new feature like this one button configuration, which we're all assuming works perfectly. Okay? To be clear about that, the one button configuration matching, I've played with that some time ago, and it didn't work quite as seamlessly or perfectly as you might think. And I had a bad experience with that, specifically with Tahoma. Okay? So, A, we're assuming that great new feature works. B, we're assuming we care, which I don't. And C, what other new bugs have been introduced in Tahoma that are going to make me regret doing that upgrade? Because well, let's put it this way. In the last 2 years, I've used at least, I don't know, probably 10 different versions of Krita. How many times have I done an upgrade of Krita where whatever I gained in terms of new features was not actually offset by other things that were more broken or crashed more or whatever? So the whole net experience was a negative. How many times has that happened out of 10 different versions of Krita? 9. There's only been one time ever that I've upgraded Krita where it didn't. I mean, I would say the jump to 4, the first early 4 versions was an improvement over 3.14 in terms of stability, but not in terms of performance. And then it got worse again, stability-wise. And now they're back to stable. So 9 times out of 10, it's been negative to do a software upgrade. So am I going to upgrade Tahoma just so that my current configuration, so that I can see it actually import correctly into the reinstalled Tahoma? I don't think so. I don't think that's happening today. No, no, no. So that's my sort of snarky answer, but no, I'm pretty much done with software upgrades and dinking around with the software for a while. You know, I'm more interested in getting my work done. Okay, so that's just me. That's my attitude, my decision. It is what it is. But the feature's cool. I mean, I don't see it as even being particularly useful in terms of upgrading Tahoma on this machine anyway. The feature you're describing is only, to me, is only useful if I'm wanting to take my current Tahoma configuration and duplicate it perfectly on another machine, which means on the other machine, I've got the same skin, I've got the same hotkeys, I've got the same folder structure. You just run it, and it's exactly working the way it works on the other machine. How many times have I ever seen that happen with Tahoma or anything remotely close to it, even by going in and manually editing the configuration files? How many times have I ever seen Tahoma successfully port over to another machine and duplicate its configuration in a situation where it purported to be able to do that? How many times has that happened? 0. Not once has it ever happened. I couldn't care less about auto lip sync, Soda Pop. I'm not trying to be snarky, and I mean, I love you, dude. You know, you've been around for a while, and I appreciate you here. So your questions and comments are always welcome. But just, just being as honest as I can be, I could not possibly care less about auto lip sync. Why? Because I'm using anime convention for lip sync. That's what this pattern is. Slightly open mouth, more open mouth, slightly open mouth, more open mouth, almost closed mouth. Slightly open, more open, slightly open, more open, slightly open, more open, almost closed. This pattern of slightly open, more open, so this is the pattern. Dot, dot, that pattern is what you see in anime. That's how they do lip sync. They don't use phonemes. Why? Well, for the obvious reason. The show's going to be translated into a bunch of different languages. Right? Oh, I believe it worked for you. It worked for Darren T, too. I mean, to be totally above board here, I know. The configuration matching, as I recall, this has been like a month ago or something, but it worked fine for Darren, and I did everything, I'm pretty sure, the way he described, and it didn't work for me. I have no idea why, and I didn't want to spend days trying to figure it out. I mean, why would I? To import my hotkeys and then just basically get everything about Tahoma dialed in to where it is the same as the other machine only takes about a half an hour. Whereas figuring out why the auto configuration thing doesn't work is more likely to take 10 times that long, a couple days or something. So it just there's no win there. There's no net gain by hoping that feature works. For me, I'm not seeing what I would get out of it. So just saying. Now, having said that, to have the ability in Tahoma to let me just say this, as long as I'm going to talk about software, okay? Here's the deal. The very idea that I can't take the folder that Tahoma's installed into, put it on any other machine, and the entire configuration immediately is magically perfectly duplicated. The very idea that isn't what happens just automatically without any kind of software upgrade is, to me, beyond ridiculous. Just utterly, completely ridiculous. The idea that anything in terms of your configuration would be stored outside of the Tahoma folder, for me, is crazy. Because we haven't really been having to worry about disk space for about 20 years now, right? So for software to be portable, I mean, the bottom line is it should be 100% portable all the time. So to add a new tool, a special new feature that duplicates your configuration, I just wag my head at that and go, oh my God, we're going to spend months building in a new feature that is only covering over the fact that the software doesn't do what it's supposed to do in the first place, which is just read your freaking configuration and know what it's supposed to do. There's nothing complicated about that. You're reading text files, But reading text files for Tahoma is a little bit challenging because it stores everything in XML format. And if you're a programmer, you know that everybody looks at XML with a certain amount of disdain because it's so hard to parse it without errors, and it's also it's prone to lots of errors. That's why I tell you to when I tell you guys to open up the cast window and remove all unused levels. Honestly, this feature right here is precisely the same thing I'm talking about. The only reason this feature is in the software is because the software is not programmed correctly such that when you delete a level, it gets deleted out of the database, if you will. So you've got an XML file that when you delete a level, the data related to that level is not deleted from your Tahoma project file, the XML file. It doesn't get deleted out of it. It's easier for Tahoma to just overwrite it. So what they do is they have you as the user take an extra step to clean it out and then resave over it so that they don't have to do the hard work of parsing through the XML data, keeping good track of it, and then deleting out levels from the data when you delete them in your X sheet. So this is a kludge. This is a hack to cover over the fact that the software doesn't do what it's supposed to do intelligently. But the kludge works. It works very well. This will keep your Tahoma scenes clean and keep you from having some occasionally very strange crashes that go on. Same thing is true with OpenToonz. So enough about that. Let's get back to work here. For the people that aren't worried about the nuance of software and are more interested in actual animation, this is probably a little more interesting, I would guess. So, I hope you appreciate my perspective on that Soda Pop, because whatever's working for you, do it. Do it. Okay. I see what happened. Okay, we do have a problem here. Okay. Yeah. So what she's doing is she's doing kind of this little girl thing, right? And of course, again, as I mentioned before, Golik's not going to buy it. But yep, no, just listen, Soda Pop, it's all good. I mean, I just want you to understand why. If I say, well, no, I'm not going to do that, I'm just explaining why. It's not, you're perfectly fine asking the question, and it's a legitimate question because for a lot of people, that may be a really valuable feature. It may be hugely valuable for a lot of people. For me, it's not. No big deal. All right, so back here. It's an honor to have. Okay, so now when she says honor, something about the eye blink's not quite working for me. It's an honor. Yeah, okay. I'm not sure if it's early or late. Might be a dyslexia moment. It's an honor. Okay, it feels to me like this should be slightly earlier. So I'm going to hit delete and kind of do this manually. So I'm not altering the length of what comes later. This is actually a good example where what you might want to do is just hit insert and insert an extra level so that you can go Control C, Control V over here and then drag it in, because otherwise you're going to get ripple editing, and the stuff downstream that's timed out perfectly winds up getting broken. So you want to be careful about that. But yeah, I really mean that, Soda Pop. It's perfectly fine, the questions you're asking. It's all good. Okay, so let me look again here. I wish I didn't have to keep reviewing the dialogue. It's an honor to have this opportunity. I should put like a memo in here to mark that. Okay. It's an honor. Uh-huh, that's better. It's an honor to have this opportunity. Uh-huh. Okay, and then this probably needs to come up here, because once she does this motion, yes, that's better. Okay, that's feeling pretty good. So now we're going 64 frames. I think we can render this out and cut it into the show, and then we can move on to Golek. So 64 frames, 8 times, that's 64, that's 8 seconds. So boom, boom, render that out. Let's jump over here. What was your favorite part to animate? You mean part of the show? Actually, I can answer that. See, a lot of this is just kind of work to me, okay? I mean, it's fun and it's cool. It's better than digging ditches, but it's still just kind of stuff you got to do. Shots like this tend to be fun, because there's a lot of motion and there's a lot of acting. So, for example, this shot here, because it was animated straight ahead, and I just think it came out nice. So you see Monkey climbing up there and jumping around. Okay, so this stuff, I would say, favorite, probably. Only just because it came out so nice, it feels good, it's fun to watch, blah, blah, blah. So, but everybody tends to like the stuff with Monkey. So, not altogether surprising, I suppose. It's the reason he's in the show, is to provide some sort of comedy relief. But, okay, Project Media, this is shot number, what, 480, or I'm sorry, 493 scenes. 493 should be right around here. There it is. Render. We're going to open up this image sequence. We're going to tell Vegas to view it as 8 frames per second. 493. And we're going to drag that baby into the show. Okay, so that was this shot. And we'll see what we have. Okay, so there's Golik looking a little bit not quite so sure. And then we go back to the wide shot. So we're getting a lot of leverage here for sure. Okay. Let's just watch this. Oh yeah, she says I have you to thank. Okay, I like it. I like it because it feels like she's I like the weight. You know, he looks at her and then there's a little pause. Normally I would want to edit this tighter. But in this case, that blink makes it work. Because now she's thinking, what do I do next? It's an honor. So she's saying it's an honor. And then that, I'm getting away with doing the eye blink thing twice, only because the way she goes, you know, that little girl thing, I think makes it work. Okay, so then Golik's going to be like, okay, what game is she playing here? What's going on? Okay, Soda Pop, I understand I mainly use CSP and OpenToonz, was trying to port some stuff from Tahoma and got into some confrontation with MJ. Soda Pop, what is, I'm sorry, but what is MJ? You don't have to say if there's some reason you wouldn't want to, but I don't get, port some stuff from Tahoma and got in some, oh, okay. So I would assume MJ is either somebody associated with the Tahoma community or associated with the Tahoma development, one or the other. So okay, and that's fair. I mean, for a long time, I certainly, and I have OpenToonz on my system too. I mean, for a long time, I would have been pretty insistent that OpenToonz was more stable than Tahoma. The only reason I use Tahoma instead of OpenToonz is because I can cut and paste. You know, cut and pasting from the clipboard doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but for me, it's massive. It's a huge part of my workflow, is being able to just draw something really quick and dirty in Krita and just Control-C, Control-V, and now it's in Tahoma. It's been tremendously valuable, and I'm very grateful to Jeremy Bullock for getting that into the software. Hopefully the OpenToonz people will allow that to be folded into the OpenToonz code base, too. We'll see. Okay, so what does Golik do? He says, okay, yeah. So what Golik does, let's jump back here actually for the purpose of looking at this. What Golik actually does here, I want to really try to convey what his attitude is. He's going to be like, I think we're going to see this blink again, and then you're going to see his expression soften, and he's going to say, well, very good. Okay, I think this is what should happen. This shot actually can be run probably in reverse to a degree. So he's going to look at her like this. He's going to soften a bit like that because he does not care that she's playing a game. He doesn't know quite what her game is, but he doesn't care. He's a pretty tough guy. He knows he's in control of the situation. And if she wants to act stupid, that's her business. So then what he does is he's going to soften like this without the zoom. The zoom will not be in there. And then he's going to, but then the smile is going to disappear. And he's going to straight out tell her, he's going to go like this. He's going to say, very good. And then the smile disappears and he says, cover your face. The prince will be along shortly. So he's still all business, right? So that's what we're dealing with here. This shot and this shot. I'm deleting this from the show. I'm not going to show him wheel around and leave the room. I think that's just stupid. There's no need for that. In fact, quite the opposite. What we should do is cut back to Tianara. So this, and this can all be deleted. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in one more shot of Golik here. And maybe some indication of him leaving the room. If we came back to Tianara, honestly, we could solve this in a major way, actually, by going back to each of these two shots, and which I think I would like to do, and I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to go back to each of these two shots and just put in an overlay that shows Golik's shadow. Okay? And re-render it. That's probably going to take a total of 5 minutes or something to go ahead and add that shadow here in the foreground over the sofa. Because what that does is it allows me on this next shot to have Golik say his line of dialogue, and then we cut back to her and we see the shadow just pull away like that. And that makes it, then we know that Golik left the room. And we don't have to do a bunch of animation for no good reason. So yeah, hey, see you later, Soda Pop. Have fun at school. Okay. So with that, we'll actually start it here. Right? So what I'm going to do is just go back here like this, and all I'm going to do is, how do we want to do this? Actually, let's just do it as a plain old raster level, or Toonz raster level, I should say. So I'm going to just go like this, and go like that, and then fill that in. Okay, I'm not sure I'm totally loving that. Maybe a little bit more. Okay. So now I'm looking over here at Golik. Yeah, this actually works. This kind of looks like his profile. So I'm actually hitting the wrong key over here. I want to go B key, and I want to give just a little bit of a kiss there. For the sort of the top of his hair, and then I'm just kind of scrubbing over this with the fill tool to get that filled in. And it would probably be reasonable as well to give some indication of his ears, because again, we just definitely want it to be explicit that this is Golik's shadow we're seeing here. Okay, no problem. And then we'll take this and we'll make it like probably about like that. And we're going to stretch this over the whole shot. And it just, and you're not, when you're watching this, you're not going to even notice that or think about it. It'll only become important when it has to leave the shot. Then all of a sudden you go, oh, that was Golik's shadow. Okay. So now I can go Control Shift R and re-render that shot. And now what I want to do is I'm going to look at the name of this level, because Tahoma makes up the names itself, right? So where are the properties? Where are the layer properties or the level properties? I guess it might be over here. Level settings. That's what I wanted. Okay, so in the drawings, this is, and actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to select this. Hit Control C, and I'm going to look at this on the other screen just so I can really see. So that it looks like it's IV. Looks like it's all uppercase, so I don't think that's LV. So IV as in you're sick and you need an IV. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to save all. And now the last shot of Tianara was 488. Boom. We'll pull that one up, and there we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to actually just browse to the folder where the drawings are kept, which I'm doing on the other screen. Takes half a second. So I'm going into the drawings folder. As you can see, well, I'll switch screens. So what I'm going to do is find IV, and basically if these were sorted by date, actually, it should be the last one that was created. So that right there should be it. Okay? So now, should be able to just drag this into this scene, and there it is. There's Golik's shadow. Worked perfectly. Now, What might be interesting here, but not necessary in the other shot, would be to take the Animate tool and just do a 4-frame, just a little tiny movement. And I'm actually going to even add a secondary movement, just a couple frames here, just to tell the audience, because this is where we first start seeing Golik interacting with her. I just want to give a signal to the audience that Golik is there in the room. So I'm going to go ahead and render that. I just, again, have to get Control-Shift-R. And it could be that that was a little overplayed. It could be that that movement at the beginning of this shot might not be necessary, but let's find out. So Golik comes in there and kind of sort of says something. I would say it's unnecessary. It's obvious that he's casting a shadow. I think maybe the first initial movement would be okay, but I think that's all we need. So let's go back here and just simplify this. This is overkill. And this is something I get spanked for every once in a while, is putting in too much animation for no good reason. Okay. Slight movement is probably okay, and it probably should happen very, very quickly. Doubt what the behavior is going to be. So we need to pull up 491, load scene, actually recent scene file. 491, there it is. We're going to save all on this shot. Okay. This should be already set up for, post-production. So we don't need to deal with all the plugins, and everything are already done for us because they are left over from the other shots. So that's cool. So all we have to do is just figure out the action. Now, yes. So what we had at the end here was this. Okay, so this is where we're starting. We literally want to run this in reverse. I mean, like, completely. That's exactly what we want to do. So I think for me, because I'm a little bit stupid, I'm going to just do it this way. I'm going to literally rebuild this in reverse. So I'm going to start with frame 2. Actually, I guess I'll pull that back out. All right, and so now we're going to add 3. Control C. Control V. And let's see here what we've got going. Why are we seeing that slight? Oh, because of the plastic tool. Sorry. My bad, people. This is going to have to be stretched down. All we're going to be doing is messing with the keyframes anyway, so okay. Alright, so this probably needs to be something like that. We're really playing with the attitude here. Okay, and so now let's also stretch the background down. Okay, so everything north of here is going to wind up getting deleted. So, hope that makes sense. And so now we're going to get to, actually, we're starting here. I'm sorry, we're starting here on frame 12. So I'm making a mental note of that right now. Everything from 11 up is going to get deleted. So he does a blink, but then there should be another blink before he shifts his position. And then we're going to go back to shot number 1. there's that. Stretch that down. And then what we're going to do here is go Control C. We're starting at 12, so we'll put a keyframe there. Control C again. We'll be dealing with his mouth shortly. So here we're going to go Control V, and then we want to get him back to this position. So Control C, Control V. Okay, that works. So now what we're going to do is grab this mouth shape, and I would say it goes ahead and changes here. And then he's going to have some dialogue. Now, there's going to be a little change. And some of these distances in between, where it's sitting on some keys, I may shorten up. Okay? But what he's going to do is, here he's going to say very good. Okay, so now it's important that his phonemes, or his mouth shapes, are in a smiling orientation. And it looks like they are, so I think we can drag these two in here. Control C, Control V. And then the smile. And then his smile is going to disappear, so he's going to say, very good. And then boom, now he's into a serious look. Alright, let's select all these, delete them, and then I'm hitting Shift or Alt down arrow to just lengthen this all out, because we're going to have to extend the lip sync. So now here what we're going to do is we're going to add 2 drawings. And these drawings, I'm just going to delete the mouth that's in there. Actually, strike that. Makes more sense to leave it in there so that it becomes a guide for what I'm about to do. Okay, so let me just look at this, see what the sizing is. Okay, so this shape, it's essentially the same as the other, except it's just not smiling. So we'll stretch that down there a little bit, hit the B key. Okay, I'm going to hit the fill tool and put it in freehand mode, so I can actually just lasso it like that. Okay, and then I'm going to take this, copy that, hit the S key, Control V, and just draw over that. So it's just making it a little easier to keep the mouth shapes where I need them to be. And then we're going to hope that everything looks about right. Okay? So here, boy, this pause, once his mouth goes serious, should be kind of long. Okay, so these two, let's, by the way, hit, what was it, Control Shift R? No. Yeah, dangerous behavior there, folks. Let me see if we introduced a problem. Okay, yeah, I accidentally started to render without having updated the file name for this one. So this is not supposed to be 491. Let me just double check and make sure I don't have a problem. It looks like I don't. Glad I circumvented that. Okay, so this is actually going to be, I don't even know what to call this. I think 494 will work. So let's file. Okay, hold everything here. We may have a problem. I am really, really sure that I've saved this. Okay, this is a quintessential problem I will underscore. Thanks, Pen. If at any time in the last 10 minutes I hit Control S, which I certainly should have in normal practice, then what I did was I actually overwrote shot number 491. I've destroyed shot number 491, and the only way I'm going to get it back is to hit undo a bunch of times. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do other save options, and I'm going to save this as 494. Okay. So now this is saved. All right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit undo a bunch of times. Let's see how far back we can go. No more undo operations available. So this is very, very bad, probably. So now what I have to do is on my other screen, I have to look at his attitude in 491. And all he does is tilt his head and kind of blink. What do we have here? Tilts his head and kind of blinks. Okay, so I salvaged it. I got really lucky. So now what we're going to do is we're going to save this as 491. Okay, so now we've recovered 491. And what we need to do then is now reload 494. And now we're back to normal. So it's actually a good thing I hit the wrong hotkey. Been modified. I think I'm going to load the scene anyway and see what I wind up with. If I have a problem, I'll just amend it. Yes. So these. So I lost the mouth shapes. Okay. Fine. No problem. So file. Save all. We're in good shape. I just need to change my render settings because this is supposed to render as 494, not 491. And then we are rocking and rolling, baby. Okay? So no problem. File. Save all. Okay, so let's just reproduce those mouth shapes. And the way I did that was I went DD and then just zipped in. So sorry about having to do a little redo here, but it's better than having another shot completely destroyed, right? So I'm hitting the B key, and I did mouth shape number 1. And then just to make it a little easier, I grabbed this shape, copied it to the clipboard, came into this next shape, pasted it in from the clipboard, and then used that as a guide to draw the mouth that's even a little bit bigger. And then again, fill tool. So now I'm going to hit save all. So now this TLV layer or level, the file on disk that's a .tlv file has now been changed. But because the additional drawings were added to the end of the list as opposed to being inserted somewhere in the middle, it won't break the other shots. The other shots are still looking for these images in this order. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so now what we're going to do is grab this, and we're going to put this on 2s. So reframe on 2s. Okay, and then what does he say? He says, very good, cover your face. The prints will be along shortly. Okay, so let's just kind of map this out. Cover your face, brief pause. The prince will be along shortly. And so we'll see if this times out about right. I suspect it will be close. I suspect. But you just never know. You don't know. You can't be sure. And that could be very bad news, everyone. All right, so rewind. Let's crop that to the camera. Let's save all and then see what we've got. So yes, and then there's one mistake still, which is that everything down to here needs to be deleted. So let me check something here. Yes. So I'm literally just going like that. Okay. So this, okay, so now there's a problem. And I'm going to go ahead and hit undo a bunch more times. This is a great example of something that if you didn't know it, you wouldn't know it. But here's the deal. These keyframes need to be slid down to frame 12. Because this was getting like his mouth and everything in position. This one's okay. But now we're going to be all right. So I'm hitting Alt, up arrow. And we're just deleting everything up to there. Cool beans. And when that renders, again, we've got the blur and the lighting effects and everything, so everything's looking good. So he says, very good. Cover your face. Very good. Cover your face. Prince will be along shortly. Okay, and the only thing I would say is I think I basically like the timing of it and stuff. I think maybe putting one more eye blink here would be appropriate. And we don't have that. So now we've got to do the same thing I talked about doing before. I'm going to delete this image. I'm going to go here. This, to be clear, guys, this drawing that you're seeing right here is this drawing. It's just modified by the plastic tool, so it looks like he's bent over. In the actual drawing, he was sitting up straight. Okay? So that means, we can't use this because his eyebrows are in the wrong position. So here's what we're going to do. Let's hit the D key, make a duplicate of this, and then we're going to come up here, essentially grab his eyebrow area. Control C, cut it to the clipboard, and then I'm hitting the S key, Control V, and there we've got our blink that works in this orientation. So this can now be dragged here, and there you go. I almost wonder if a couple of these would be appropriate. Control C, and then maybe somewhere like there. Okay, I think we're almost done here. And then let's give him about a half a second or so. We'll go to frame 96 because that's a nice round number. Save all. And this is going to render as number 494. And so I believe our work here is done. Let's go Control Shift R. We'll cut it into the show, and then I'm pretty sure that my 15 seconds of animation for today is done. So let's go here, import 494. There it is. There it is. It's a long one because there's a bit of attitude and acting here that we're going to be dealing with. And there it is, 494. We want to turn off resampling. And then we go here. This should be Tianara, and indeed it is. Okay. So yeah, this is quite a delicious little interaction as far as I'm concerned. I really like it. I'm going to pop this up and just kind of go through here again. All right. I see you've come to your senses. Uh, I have. And I want to thank you, good Golek. Hmm? It's an honor to have this opportunity. Very good. Cover your face. The prince will be along shortly. Yeah, that works, baby. That works. This is a, you know what? Geez. Pen asked, you know, what's your favorite part? What was your favorite part to animate? I tell you the truth, man. Stuff like this is a lot of fun to animate because it's really not like a massive job, if the truth be known, and yet the the subtle acting where you see the attitudes come through for me is the part that's probably the most fun. So just today we've got 20 seconds, so that means that we're done. That's it. We're done, folks. Do you want to see it full screen? I'll make it full screen and you can see it full screen, and then we will be done for today. So let's just kind of watch it and have some fun. So she spies the way out. I see you've come to your senses. I like the way she darts her eyes around. I have. And I want to thank you, good Golek. It's an honor to have this opportunity. Very good. Now cover your face. The prince will be along shortly. Okay, so that's pretty much what we're going to be doing. Thank you, Maria. You know what, I love and appreciate comments like that because it shows that you're really thinking like an editor and a storyteller, and so I definitely take a compliment like that. I take to heart, just because I totally get where it's coming from, and it's what's important to me. I mean, I want the show to be entertaining. So, anyway, that's it. That's it for today. As you guys know, there was